Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Claire Corley. I'm the vicar here at St George's, and it's my absolute delight to welcome you to our hustings this evening. We've organised this in partnership with the Altrincham Methodist Church, so thank you for being here tonight, Jackie, and all the wonderful people that have put their time in to make it happen. Prior to being a vicar, I was a teacher. I was head of humanities faculty, a history teacher to 11 to 18-year-olds. And I spent my time with these fabulous, intelligent, lively and passionate young people, teaching them to seek out the evidence, to analyse the facts, and to reach clear, substantiated conclusions. You can see where I'm going. And so it's to my delight tonight to invite us as adults, as grown-up children no less, to do the same and play our part in the great democratic process of this wonderful country. I'm inviting us tonight to ask our questions, to listen carefully to the answers and make our decisions in the light of the facts in front of us. And I'm sure it goes without saying, but I am confident that we can all listen well without any interruption, better, no doubt, than any Year 9 class that I've ever taught. Because after all, each of us will be able to have our say on Thursday, the 4th of July. I also wanted to take this opportunity to say thank you to all of the candidates who have given up their time to be here this evening, time in a busy campaign schedule. But I also wanted to thank each and every one of them for being willing to put themselves forward to represent us in this next Parliament. For as our recent history has shown us, in the light of the tragedy of Joe Cox and Sir David Amess, putting yourself forward is not always an easy decision to make, particularly in this age of complex situations that rarely have an easy answer. So may I just thank you on behalf of us all for being willing to put yourself forward to public scrutiny and being willing to take up the burden alongside the joy of public office. Now, just some practicalities for you. We're obviously not going to have a fire drill, so if we do need to vacate the building, we can go out the way you came. There is also, here's the air hostess, exits to my back here and down here as well if we do need to leave. I'm sure your phones will be waiting for a rest this evening, so if you could just make sure that they're on silent, and I'll do that with my own in a moment. And finally, should you need the toilet, in a year's time, we are hopeful that we are going to have the most beautiful toilets in the world in that corner. Sadly, we are a year too early, so if you do need the toilet or any sort of refreshment, head back into the parish centre, back through the doors you came from, straight away. But enough from me now. I do hope that you will enjoy listening to the responses of each of these candidates, and I'll now hand over to Thomas Hay, who will chair our hustings this evening.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks very much indeed for coming. Format that we're going to do, we're going to have some introductions first, then we're going to have time for questions. You've had an opportunity to write your questions, and they're being composited at the back there as we speak. And then at the end, we'll have a bit of summing up. So I hope you'll enjoy it. So, without any more ado, can I ask for the candidates to introduce themselves? We'll start with Jane, if that's all right. We've got 1.5 minutes. We've also got a sophisticated timing schedule. You'll see here. So greens go, amber you'll get a 60 seconds, and then red means out of time, and I'll be
So thank you, everybody. I'm delighted to have been invited to this Churches Together event. Thank you so much for inviting me. I stand here really proud to be your Liberal Democrat candidate tonight, and I think I've got the right experience to represent Altrincham South West, and I'll just explain why. I was your member of the European Parliament in 2019, and I was there about a year, and since then I've been back working at Withenshaw Hospital as a frontline worker, and I work helping people with diabetes. And I've also been a local councillor here in Tipley, Altrincham, for 25 years. All my children went to local schools, and one of the things that defines me is I'm a carer for my son who has complex needs. I know it's really difficult and a struggle to find the right support for our loved ones, but I believe that our Lib Dem policies will change this. I'm passionate about enhancing our local parks and green spaces because I think that we all benefit so much in our mental health when we've got those parks and green spaces. So, this election, it's an historic one, it's a defining moment, and you do have a genuine choice of who to vote for. And unfortunately, I think the current government, the Conservative government, they have broken our NHS, the Conservatives have wrecked our economy, and they have let sewage be dumped into our waterways. Now Labour, my beliefs are, is they just make themselves more and more similar to the Conservatives. So I think I need to conclude now. There's one message that is cutting through though. This government has got to go, and I hope you decide to support the Liberal Democrats. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paul Swansborough, and I am your Reform UK candidate. Britain has been in gradual decline since 1997, when Labour took power. Blair-White policies have destroyed the very fabric of our society. Mass immigration has driven wages down and had a detrimental effect on our public services and housing. Under the Tories, today we have the highest tax burden since the Second World War. 7.6 million people on NHS waiting lists. Private rents have surged 20% in the last 2 years, and people are waiting as long as 50 years to get a council house. The mass migration model is a gift to big corporates, not working Brits. UK wages have stagnated under Tory misrule, and they have failed to stop the votes with Deborah Vanderbilt. Labour believes that mass immigration is the solution to all of our problems, favouring open borders and high taxes. Labour is essentially a politically correct group, unfocused on the things that matter to you and I. In summary, the Tories have broken Britain, and Labour will bankrupt Britain. Only reform will freeze immigration to increase British wages and ease pressure on housing and healthcare. Our country needs fundamental reform from the ground up, starting with our economy, law and order, education, healthcare and energy security.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks to the organisers of tonight's event and for all of you for coming. This is the most consequential election Altrincham and Selwest has ever faced. On the 5th of July, you will either wake up with a Labour MP or me as your representative and your voice in Parliament. You will either have another MP added to Sir Keir Starmer's tally of yes men, or an independent-minded person who has set aside a successful legal career to be your voice, the voice for his hometown. Now, I will not insult your intelligence. We have not covered ourselves in glory as a party. We've had our fair share of unforced errors. It's exactly for that reason that I'm putting myself forward to be your Member of Parliament, because I believe we need more professionals in politics. But this is about the future, and between the two candidates that could be your next MP, only one of us has never campaigned against selective education. Only one of us will stand up for our schools. Only one of us has campaigned unequivocally and relentlessly to reopen Altrincham Hustings unit, and only one of us has a clear plan to protect our green belt. These are the local issues in respect of which I will fight your corner. That is why I'm doing this. That is why I want to be your representative, and with your support, I will be your voice, an authentic voice for my hometown in Parliament. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Jackie, Josie, Tom and all the team for organising tonight. I'm Geraldine Coggins and I'm the Green Party candidate. I'm a councillor here in Altrincham. I was first elected in 2018, one of the first Greens on Trafford Council. And since that time we have really gone from strength to strength and now have 6 councillors across Trafford. part of a green wave of electoral success we've seen across the country. All of those seats were taken from the Conservatives. And I think it feels like at the moment the stakes are very, very high. A lot of people are really feeling the instability in our world at the moment. People are struggling to pay their bills. We have war in Europe and in Gaza. We're seeing a rise in hate crime on our streets, including anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. And of course, we've had the hottest year on record, yet again. But as Breathe, we have real ambition for a greener and fairer country. We want to invest in our NHS, in our care system, in our local councils. We want to tackle the climate crisis so that we have a greener and fairer country to hand on for our children and grandchildren to inherit. So for real hope and real change, vote Green on the 4th of July. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Connor. I'm the Labour Party's candidate at this general election here at Altrincham and Sale West. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak to you today in St George's Church. The Labour Party, of course, owes a great deal to faith. Keir Hardie himself was a lay preacher, and concerns about inequality and excessive individualism have influenced the very foundations and ethos of our party. I want to tell you a little bit about me. In my job, I lead a national campaign against the abuse and violence that shop workers receive. I'm raising my young family in South Manchester, and my son was born last year in Wythenshawe Hospital on the happiest day of my life. My partner, Catherine, is a primary school teacher. I believe we need profound change in our country, and I want to wake up to a new government on the 5th of July, a competent, stable, reforming Labour government. I think Altrincham and Sale West needs an MP who understands the pressures that working people and families have faced in recent years, and who will give you a real stake and a real voice in that government. And that's exactly what I'll do if I'm elected as your MP on the 4th of July.
Thanks very much. So, we have been taking your questions that you wrote as you came in, and I've got the first two here. So, the first one is on education, and it's, in this area, our schools are oversubscribed and struggling with lack of funding, especially in their SEND area. What would you do about this? I'll just read it again, just so you can hear me. In this area, our schools are oversubscribed and struggling with lack of funding, especially in the SEND area. What would you do about this? So, to start off, I'll ask Connor.
Yes, thank you very much. On schools, as you can imagine, I hear a lot about burgeoning class sizes, around the lack of funding in schools, around children going to school hungry. And the reality is that we have a crisis of schools provision, not just in this area, but across the country. And the last 14 years have seen huge cuts to schools' budgets, the scrapping of building schools for the future, alongside huge local government cuts. And so, for 14 years, we have not acted on state provision. Only Labour recognises that and has a clear plan to recruit 6,500 more teachers. We need to recruit more education staff and retain them, critically, when they are in post. And I want every local child in this area to succeed. I want to support every school. I attended a small, independent, private school, which my parents worked round the clock to send me to. I want to see more schools like that. I have never campaigned against any type of school, and so don't listen to flat untruths from other parties about which schools Labour will or won't support. Nothing has changed on our schools under a Labour council, and so nothing will change under a Labour government. And it's up for the other parties to set out how they will increase state provision, but I'm clear, schools need more funding and we need to support school building wherever we can.
Thank you very much. And then Geraldine.
Thank you. Yeah, as a local councillor, I work closely with all our local schools. We support all the amazing work they're doing in really difficult circumstances. And to be honest, I think that what Oliver's Conservative government has done to our schools is a national scandal. We have seen over a decade of funding cuts. We have a teacher recruitment crisis, a teacher retention crisis, and the situation with children with special educational needs is particularly dire. And it is really heartbreaking to hear the stories of those who have been so badly let down by this Conservative government. As Greens, we would like to see a lot of changes to the education system. We want to trust teachers and empower them to do their job, the job that they're fully trained and well able to do. So we would like to abolish Ofsted and abolish SATs so the teachers can focus on teaching and give everyone the support they need. We want to see a change of our early years education that will really support those with special educational needs. It will help us to diagnose and spot problems earlier, and it will help us to get the right support in place. And we'd like to see an increase in funding for those with special educational needs and free school meals for all children, because so many people are struggling when they turn up at school not ready to learn. So as Greens, we want to see a widespread change to our school system. We have campaigned here as local councillors to support North Kestrel to move into the old Loretto Prep building to deal with the crisis we have in places at the moment. But what this education system desperately needs is more funding, and Greens are committed to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will address the allegation that there's been an untruth. I have never stood in front of a sign that said hashtag no new grammars. Someone on this panel has, and I'm afraid it wasn't me. I stand unequivocally behind the diversity of schools that we have in our area. I benefit from them, I'm a Torty boys, I understand their value. Addressing the SEND point directly, we need more SEND provision. We've got manifesto commitments to it. But I'll tell you one thing that will make it an awful lot worse, is that is a 20% tax on private education. Because so many SEND children are sent to special schools in the private sector. And there may be comments that say Labour policy says actually those children that go from the state sector into SEND provision in the private sector will be exempt. But of course those schools won't be able to survive when their parents can't afford those fees and send their children to private schools. We are on a precipice in this area. It's hard to get your kids into local schools as it is. And Labour policy to put 20% tax on private education will swamp schools in this area. It is a pernicious policy, it is anti-meritocratic, it is anti-aspirational, it is anti this area, and I will stand up against it unequivocally.
Well, my children all went to local schools, so I have direct experience of the Willows Primary School, Altrincham Girls, Altrincham College, Sale Grammar, Lynn High, and Wellington School as well. So I passionately support all the schools in our area, good schools. I'm not in the business of wanting to change the system. But I do believe passionately in better special educational needs and disability support for children. And that's through personal experience. I also think it's cost effective to invest in children while they're still at school. Because if we can get the right support for those children who are struggling, then that means they will cost us less in the long term, but it also means their well-being and their mental health is protected as they move into adulthood. So I don't want to change the grammar high school system here, but what I do want to see is a level playing field so that all pupils can have that opportunity. So Liberal Democrats, we introduced free school meals, we introduced the pupil premium. It's our policy, and we want to expand the pupil premium to help disadvantaged pupils get a place at the grammar school if they're academically able, and pupil premiums help people from disadvantaged backgrounds support their children better through education. So, in summary, the Liberal Democrats are the party of education, and if you want support for your local schools, and if you want someone passionately advocating for a better education for your children, especially those from special educational needs and with disability, then the Liberal Democrats have the right policies for that. Thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, as a local man, I have have two daughters, and they both go to a great school, Lixton Girls' School. However, it's not perfect. There are far too many substitute teachers being used in our education system. But putting that aside, we have some fantastic schools in Trafford, no doubt about it. It's the reason people come here and live here. For that reason, they're oversubscribed, which is why Reform will commit £5 billion to improving school buildings and recruiting more teachers. And lastly, what I'll say to finish is what we don't need is thousands of houses being built on the green belt before the infrastructure is put in place. So it's all very well the combined authority wanting to build more and more houses on our doorstep. We cannot build them until we have the schools and the hospitals and the GP surgeries in place.
Thanks. The next question is on health. So the question is, how do you plan to solve the problems of underfunding in the NHS? And specifically for Altrincham, what do you intend to do about the currently closed minor injuries unit? I'll just repeat that. How do you plan to solve the problems of underfunding in the NHS? And specifically for Altrincham, what do you intend to do about the currently closed minor injuries unit? Can we go to Geraldine first?
Thank you. Yeah, we are proud to stand up for the NHS as Greens, and our NHS is facing the worst crisis in its 80-year history. This isn't an accident, this is a deliberate political choice. This has been underfunded by all this Conservative government, and as Greens we want to change that. Part of the answer, especially to the minor injuries unit, is about treating our staff well and training the staff we need. And again, as an Altrincham councillor, I've been working on the minor injuries unit since it closed. It's a real issue, and the problem is a mixture of underfunding of the whole NHS, but crucially that we do not have the right staff in place. The kind of very experienced nurses to staff that unit are just not available. So we need a real plan that looks ahead and trains the people we need. But a lot of the problems we have in the NHS are about the fact that successive governments from all of the old parties have wanted to bring in this creeping privatisation into the NHS. And as Greens, we always stand against privatisation of the NHS. We believe that profit plays no role in our healthcare system. So we want to stand against that. And we also, I think, crucially need to focus on prevention. So supporting our care system so that people can stay at home and have the help they need for longer, and encouraging and supporting us to live healthier, happier lives so that we have less need for healthcare. And you know, we are all dependent on our NHS in our darkest moments, and I think we really need to save it from privatisation and fund it properly so that we all have the support we need. Thank you.
So I'm an NHS worker. I see the NHS day by day from the inside. Liberal Democrats have got the policies to fix this, because we know that the reason why the hospitals are struggling, it is due to funding, and the Lib Dems do have a costing manifesto. Here it is, to increase funding for the NHS. But what we need is to look at the whole system. Many people are in hospital when they don't need to be, because we haven't fixed social care, and the Liberal Democrats are the only party that do have costing policies. We want to support care workers. We want to increase the wages for care workers above the minimum wage, because these people are caring for our loved ones. And at the moment, we can't get staff as local government, we can't get those staff to care for our loved ones at home when they shouldn't be in hospital. And a lot of people are stuck in hospital when they need to be because the care isn't there in the community. We also have a plan to look at prevention, which is really important. But when it comes to Altrincham Hospital, as a local councillor, I absolutely support Altrincham Hospital campaign from the beginning. But we, as Liberal Democrats, would like to see it enhanced. We'd like it to be an urgent care centre, because you might hear a lot of talk about minor injuries, but actually minor injuries is an old model, and the NHS isn't supporting minor injuries units anymore. What we want to have for Altrincham is a proper urgent care centre, so that when people do have needs as a hospital, as we do from time to time, then you have local services on your doorstep. So the Liberal Democrats have a costly plan, and I think if you want to support the NHS, then the government will down the perhaps will fix it.
Thank you. So yes, the NHS is completely broken and it is in crisis, which is why Reform has dedicated £17 million to invest in the NHS and social care. It needs massive investment to increase the capacity, which is why we're also committed to zero waiting lists within 2 years. I know it sounds ambitious, but that's the policy. To drive up recruitment, we would suspend the caps on medical school training. There are over 126,000 vacancies in the NHS and they all need filling. All frontline NHS and social care staff will pay zero basic rate tax for 3 years. And we'll also launch a Royal Commission of Inquiry into the social care system. Beyond that, we will encourage more people to use the private healthcare sector if they can afford it, and give them a 20% tax break. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. The question said that the NHS is underfunded. I'd use a different word. It's overstretched. There is too much demand on the NHS, so we need to work consistently. We need to work consistently to reduce demand. We also have a plan in our manifesto to those who laugh to increase NHS funding above inflation year on year, as we have done in every year of this Parliament, bar the 1 year of exceptional inflation and during the pandemic. But I tell you what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't agree to 35% carte blanche to the junior doctors, which is unaffordable. And what I wouldn't be doing is standing here tonight entering some form of perverse bidding war about how many more millions you're going to pay in tax to funnel into the NHS. Look, we all know the NHS is overstretched. We need to sit down calmly, not make political points and turn it into some laughing matter. It's not a laughing matter. My other half is a junior doctor. I know the pain that it causes staff in the NHS when they're overstretched. Believe me. But when it comes down to it, we need to look at this sensibly, reduce demand and work towards a solution. Now, on Altrincham Minor Injuries Unit, I'm the only one here that's worked consistently and campaigned for it to reopen. We have recruited 70,000 more nurses since 2019. The staff are there. It's a political choice by the Labour-led Integrated Health Board to keep it shut. They don't stand for Altrincham, they won't stand for you, and for some reason it remains shut, and that is shameful.
Thank you. Remarkably, we've gone from a position where, at the end of Labour's period of government, we had the lowest waiting lists on record and the highest patient satisfaction, to literally the reverse. What I think is shameful is the Conservatives' record on our National Health Service. We need to move to an increasingly prevention-led approach. We need more services to be delivered in the community. We need to harness the power of technology. And we need to reset the strained relationship between NHS staff and government. We need 40,000 more appointments a week to get a grip on the backlog and waiting lists that sit at record highs, and a new hospitals programme as well. Labour can save the NHS. On Altrincham Minor Injuries Unit, as James pointed out, of course, NHS England advises that we shouldn't really have minor injuries units. We should have urgent care centres to offer more holistic services. But let us be clear, it is severe staffing shortages across the Foundation Trust and as a whole within our National Health Service that mean it has been unable to reopen. On the one hand, Oliver says he doesn't want to politicise the issue. On the other, he totally ignores the wider reality in our NHS, points to one local service and then pins it on a Labour council that's had nothing to do with its failure to reopen. So we need a clear and strong plan to save our National Health Service.
Thanks very much. The next question is on discrimination, and it's
How would you work to tackle rising levels of discrimination, specifically towards the LGBTQ community and other minority communities? I'll just repeat that. How would you work to tackle rising levels of discrimination, specifically towards the LGBTQ community and other minority communities? And this will go to Oliver.
Well, thank you very much. It's an important question. As a lawyer, I've dealt with many cases over the years involving discrimination. I took a case under the Equality Act to the Supreme Court about the provision of places in rehabilitation centres for offenders after they've left prison. There are specific issues with the current legal regime, one of which is the Equality Act's treatment of sex versus gender. I think it's right that we need to clarify that. I know that many people are rightly concerned about the balance that has been struck by the courts progressively over time in that area. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that no discrimination based on sexual orientation, racial heritage, or anything of that sort should be acceptable. I am incredibly proud that as a government we legalise same-sex marriage. I think that it was about time, and under 13 years of Labour government, supposedly the most progressive Labour government they've ever had, they failed to do that. So look, I'm incredibly proud that we did that. I don't think that we should rip up the rule book here, but there are specific changes we should make in order to restore fairness, restore faith in our legal system, and I've already pointed to one of those. So thank you.
Thank you. And yes, we must do all we can to tackle rising hatred. It seems like a very divided and fractious time in our society and our country. And there are politicians actively trying to divide us and turn us against each other. On Labour's plans to tackle rising hatred, we believe we need a new hate crime strategy, particularly focused on online hate, which we've seen an explosion of. We need to improve data collection and community policing to ensure that they strike the right balance between tackling hate and doing what they do best. And we must tackle ongoing health inequalities in our National Health Service. We also believe a new LGBT plus, we believe it should be an aggravated factor when considered at a magistrate's court, LGBT hate crime. And I think that's a really important step because I know that a lot of those crimes aren't being dealt with appropriately in magistrates' courts. So I think on hatred of all types, there is an awful lot to do. But I think a reforming, strong, competent Labour government setting out a new hate crime strategy will help heal our communities and bring us back together.
I'm going to keep this quite short because I don't think this is a particularly driven question. I think across the panel here we would all agree that everyone has a right to the freedom of speech, no matter what race, colour, sex, orientation, whatever you identify as. I believe in a Britain that's free for everyone to go out there and do whatever they want. What I would say is we are backing a new British Bill of Rights. Anything that currently exists in international rights, including human rights, will be incorporated into that, and I would like to see that improved for every member of our community.
Thank you. As Greenpeace, of course, stand against all forms of discrimination and hate. I did refer to that in my introductory speech. And we would like to make big changes to help everyone feel more welcome in our community. We'd like to see police forces more integrated with our communities, and we need police forces that look like the people that they support, and we'd like to see more action on that. We want to tackle violence against women and girls, which is such a big problem, and make misogyny a hate crime. And we would like to become a more welcoming country for people who have come from elsewhere, often people who have fled war, violence and famine in their own countries. All too often we find that there are divisive political rhetoric around that, and we would like to welcome all those people here. On LGBT Q+, of course, we always want to stand up for all those rights. We know that there's far too much homophobia and transphobia in our communities, and we would like to make it much safer and much more equal for all of those people. So I think we stand together with everybody who is underrepresented and underprivileged. Thank you.
So it was the Liberal Democrats in the coalition that introduced equal marriage with the young people living in Featherstone. And like many things, the Liberal Democrats worked in the coalition, and we did a lot of good things with the Conservatives. As soon as we weren't there, a lot of bad stuff started happening. But my party, the Liberal Democrats, we exist to build a free society where every person's rights and liberties are protected. And this is why my party exists, because we do genuinely believe that. And it's also about how we conduct our political discourse. This is quite a good event. We're all being very polite to each other. We're all holding the microphone in our own time. We're not speaking over each other. We're being well chaired. But just look at your TV, look at Parliament, Prime Minister's Questions Time, and you'll see a completely different politics. A lot of what happens about diversity and human rights, it is about how we conduct ourselves. And I think that's something really, really important. And it is about what politicians do. And we've got a lot of corruption currently within the government. I think we just need change. And if we can have change in government and allow people to be the diversity in society to be enhanced and protected, I think that's where we need to head. And Geraldine mentioned policing. When it comes to policing, as a local councillor, I absolutely know that policing has to be done with communities. Police have to look like and reflect the communities that they're doing the policing in. So a lot of things happen at a local level, and I think that's where we need to start.
Great. So the fourth question is on climate change, and it is, what is your commitment to a UK that is fit for its role in a world facing the dangers of climate change? I'll just repeat that. What is your commitment to a UK that is fit for its role in a world facing the dangers of climate change? And we'll go to Paul.
So yes, climate change is real. Believe it or not, I do believe that. But the targets for net zero are killing the economy. We cannot rebuild our NHS without a strong economy. So we will scrap the green levies and VAT on energy bills, and it will save everyone £500. We will take critical infrastructure in the UK into 50% public ownership and 50% into UK pension funds. And we will unlock Britain's vast oil and gas reserves to scale down our dependency on imports. Putting that aside, we need to be smart with our energy policy to get a handle on climate change. We will invest in nuclear, and we will reinvest in renewables. But scrapping the green levy doesn't mean we need to stop investing in renewables. I don't believe that you and I should be paying the energy companies 12% out of our bills for them to go and build the infrastructure. That money to build the infrastructure should come out of their profits. They make vast profits, and it's about time they start putting those profits back into the infrastructure.
Geraldine.
Thank you. I'm so glad we've had the question on climate because, to be honest, I've done 4 Hustings now and I've been the only one mentioning it over and over again. And this is why I'm here. In 2010, when we had the general election, and I thought the climate crisis is the biggest problem that we are facing, and none of the old parties were talking about it, none of them were putting it at the heart of their agenda. So I decided to join the Green Party, and this is where it has led us. And as Greens, we have a plan. I completely disagree with Paul's take. Tackling the cost of living crisis and tackling the climate crisis are 2 sides of the same coin. By investing in insulation, you can have cheaper, warmer, cosier houses to live in while taking down your bills, and we would like to see the government fund you to do that. We want to finance all this by a carbon tax. that will mean that our dirty polluting industries will have to pay the price, not you as the customers. Those climate taxes will go up gradually over 10 years so that people will have a chance to change their industries. We also need to think about the workers and those involved and make sure they have a just transition. We've got to think about who pays and who benefits, and we all know that we will all benefit. The costs of tackling the climate crisis are there, but they are so much smaller than the cost of not tackling it. And we have to remember that this is a global issue, and as Greens we want to increase international aid as well to support those in the global south and across the world who are going to be the ones really facing the problems. And there's so much more to say. I want to see a rooftop revolution with solar panels across the country. I can tell you lots more later if we come and chat. But this is why I'm here tonight. As a parent, as a member of our society, I know that only the Greens can be trusted to take the serious action we need so that we have a greener, fairer world for our children and grandchildren to inherit. Thank you.
So I'm a Green Liberal Democrat, and I define that as my political identity. In some ways, when I go back to the coalition, we were the party that introduced all the green things then, as soon as we weren't there. And the Conservatives at the time called it green crap, and as soon as they were in government without us, they scrapped it all, and the record on climate change has just got worse and worse and worse under this current government. It is an existential threat. All our livelihoods, all our futures, future generations, the whole living structure of our world is threatened by climate change. And I don't agree with some comments so far that it actually makes economic sense that we do tackle climate change. Stern was an economist who, a few years back, he looked into the situation, and it makes economic sense to protect and have green investment policies and invest in renewable energy. So I think that we need to tackle climate change. It's also, in terms of tackling poverty, the two things link together, because if you have warm insulated homes, that makes a difference. Also, if you look at protecting our planet from climate change in the UK, it also aligns with public health as well. So, for example, if we have greener cars, greener public transport, it also means we have less air pollution, and that means we have less a need for NHS. Also, if we protect biodiversity, we also can have our green spaces. And this Conservative government have got policies where we're dumping sewage into our rivers. So the Liberal Democrats would absolutely want to stop dumping sewage into our rivers. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, the climate crisis is the biggest global challenge facing our world today. And that's why I'm so proud that Labour is committed to creating Great British Energy, to make us a clean and renewable energy superpower, as well as creating 650,000 new skilled jobs and lowering bills. We need to triple our solar power. We need to prioritise carbon capture storage. We need to not duck the question of nuclear, but make it an integral part of our energy security future. And we need to phase out North Sea oil and gas in a just transition and in a sustainable way that takes people with us. We also need a warm homes plan to make sure that our homes are properly insulated, and to have more electric cars, provided the infrastructure is in place, and make this country the green finance capital of the world. Geraldine, I'm not sure where you've been in 2010, but of course by that point the Labour government had introduced the first ever Climate Change Act and set ambitious Paris targets. Labour has a proud record on climate change. We must do it in a way that takes people with us, but I'm unashamed about being bold on the greatest challenge our world faces.
Thank you very much. I think what we've heard so far is a combination of the unrealistic, the unfunded and the unreal, frankly. We were the party that put net zero into law. So this idea that we've scrapped it all and we've literally legislated to incorporate international goals into our domestic statute book is for the birds. On the new policy, I think, of unfunded renationalisation from Reform UK, well, you can be the judge of that. Geraldine is right in one thing. It's a global problem. we could reduce our carbon emissions, not to net zero, but to zero, and it wouldn't make the world stop warming. This is an international problem with an international solution. Now, I am in favour of taking net zero measures for one reason only, so that we can look our international counterparties in the eye and say, you do your bit. Because without China doing their bit, without India doing their bit, without these other major powers doing their bit, we will make absolutely no progress. And that's why I'm incredibly proud that this Conservative government led the Glasgow climate talks. I'm incredibly proud that the UK is going to the ICJ and to take a case on climate change to make sure it's international law, customary international law, is defined and making sure that we have obligations to lessen our carbon impacted states, particularly on small island states to which we owe so much historically. But this is a practical problem deserving of a practical solution, one that doesn't impoverish us, one that doesn't mean unfunded renationalisations or, frankly, Marxist agendas from the Green Party. We have to take a practical view, and that's what we're doing.
Thank you all. The fifth question is on social care. The social care system in the UK is as broken as the NHS and contributes hugely to waiting times in hospitals. What does your party plan to do to improve the social care system? I'll just repeat that. The social care system in the UK is as broken as the NHS and contributes hugely to waiting times in hospitals. What does your party plan to do to improve the social care system? And can I ask Connor to go first?
Thank you very much. The answer is we need reform so people in care can live flourishing, prosperous and independent lives. We have a long-term ambition to create a national care service where people have more local choice underpinned by national standards. We must end the workforce crisis that we see in our care sector, where people are frankly paid a pittance for doing a very difficult job. And we need to enshrine the principle of home first and a prevention-led approach, as well as working hugely with local community groups and care in the community, which already does so much. But look, this is a huge problem. This is not a one-term government problem. This is a problem for the ages. And it's a problem, frankly, where the parties need to work together to come up with a solution. So I'm pleased that the Labour Party has committed, if it wins the election, to a cross-party review of our social care provision, because it happens all the time. In the run-up to 2010, we made what I thought were very thoughtful proposals on social care, which during the election campaign were eviscerated. In reverse, I think the same thing happened in 2017, where once again it became a political issue in the run-up to a general election. This is an issue where we need to take some of the sting and the politics out of it and work together to fix our broken social care system.
Thank you. We hear a lot from the other parties about needing to work together on this. I think we all know what's happened here is that funding social care is expensive. People are living longer and unfortunately they're not having healthier, longer lives. So one of the things we need to do is look again at prevention so that people, while we're living longer, are actually having healthier lives for longer. But the other parties do tend to say we need to work together on this because they're afraid to tell you the real cost. But as Greens, we are not afraid to say that we do need to pay for social care. We would like to see free social care to ensure dignity for all of us in our old age or whenever we need it. We'd like to see increased rates of pay and a decent pay structure for those people doing such important jobs. And we know that so many of these people are in very poorly paid jobs and doing absolutely crucial work, and we all will probably depend on them at some point. And we would like to see an investment of £20 billion a year to do this. But we do have a plan to fund this, and we would like to see a tax that affects only the very, very richest in our society, those who have assets of over £10 million, to tax the wealth of those extremely wealthy, we can then afford to give everyone the care and support that they need. We do have a green plan to reduce our waiting lists as well. There are 8 million people on our waiting list at the moment thanks to the desperate underfunding and crisis in our NHS. And we need better commitments and, crucially, long-term funding. Government has been keeping short-term funding settlements, which means the NHS can't plan ahead. So we need to tackle our care and be honest about the price and have a plan to pay for it. Thank you.
Thank you. One of the reasons I've decided to try and come into politics is because I think we don't have enough cold, hard professionalism with complex problems. This is one of those. It's the single biggest problem and failure of our political system in recent times. Theresa May lost a general election over social care. Conor has rightly pointed out that Labour Party's plans were an object of political debate too. We do need to look at this on a cross-party basis, and I'm absolutely committed to that, because there is no easy answer. There certainly isn't a politically easy answer. And simply saying taxing the rich is for the birds. So, look, we do need to look at this in the long term. I can't give you a more detailed or sophisticated answer. I don't think, frankly, that would serve you well, but I'm glad to see there's some cross-party consensus here, at least between the two candidates that could be the next MP.
So social care is in crisis in our country. Hundreds of thousands of people are waiting for care. The Liberal Democrats do have some unique policies on this. We have a £9 billion rescue package. We have the boldest policies of any party on our care service. Any of those who've been watching the political broadcast maybe have seen Ed Davey, the living embodiment of somebody who's caring with his son. And we have unveiled plans to introduce free personal care, ensuring that nobody's forced to sell their home to pay for care. We also want to make caring a protected characteristic under the Equality Act, requiring employers to make reasonable adjustments to enable carers to continue doing their responsibilities while they're working. This would make economic sense. I know that it will work to have free personal care. My dad, I was so fortunate that he lived in Scotland in his later years, and he was benefiting from that system they already have in Scotland, where they do have free personal care. So what we would do, we would create a social care workforce plan, establish a Royal College of Care Workers. This would improve recognition and career progression for care workers who are actually paid less than they would be paid just for stacking shelves in Tesco. Not to say that isn't a valuable work, but I know because my son has 52 hours of care a week. Those workers are dedicated, and they really should be paid more than the minimum wage, because I've seen what they do, and they often work very long hours, and often, the skilled ones are very good, but those skilled ones need recognition, and we would create a higher carers minimum wage. So if you want to look at tackling the care system, take a look at the Liberal Democrat policies. We have the best policies to care.
I'll be completely honest with you. I don't think anyone on this table does have the solution to the long-term issue of social care. It is a humongous task for us to undertake as a nation. Conor is absolutely right, it does need reform. And I do agree with Oliver and Conor, it needs to be a cross-party approach to finding a solution. However, in the short term, one thing I would say is, in terms of care for the elderly, I would definitely back increasing the threshold on which you have to start selling your estate to pay for your elderly or your care towards the end of your life, up to £100,000. It was supposed to be, it was on the legislative books, but it's been delayed until 2025. So I would definitely push for that threshold to be increased, because I don't think the system's fair at the moment, and the only solution will have to come from government.
Thank you very much. Question 6 is about refugees. So today is World Refugee Day. The theme, solidarity with refugees, is a crucial theme for our own community. How will you ensure all who live in our community, in hotels and housing, will receive dignity, respect and care? I'll just repeat that. Today is World Refugee Day. The theme Solidarity with Refugees is a crucial theme for our own community. How will you ensure all who live in our community, in hotels and housing, will receive dignity, respect and care? And can I go to Geraldine?
Thank you. As I've already said, we in the Green Party have a welcoming and open approach to helping those who have had to flee their countries of origin. And we celebrate the contribution that migrants have made to this country and refugees. There's so much to change. We have to end the hostile environment that Oliver's government has brought forward. That has affected so many people and caused so much suffering to the Windrush generation and many, many others. The way the system itself works is appalling. I have spoken to people who have fled Afghanistan and other parts of the world, people who worked with the British Army overseas and supported them, and the way they have been treated here is absolutely shameful. Living in tiny hotel rooms with small children for years and years on end, with just maybe a kettle and a microwave, moving from place to place with no stability, moving school to school. So we have to make a fairer and faster system. And we need to end the minimum requirements around income as well, because everybody deserves to live with their family. And we need to work to create safe routes. It's completely outrageous. I know that I have been haunted by the images I have seen from those little boats, and I'm sure many of you in this room have as well. And we need to work with other countries to create safe routes for people to come. But the key thing is that we have to think about what is going to cause the problems of migration in the future. And the climate crisis is going to be the biggest cause of forced migration that we're going to face. So by acting on that, by taking the serious action that we need to, and by investing in overseas aid to support communities now, we can actually help people to stay in their own communities for longer.
The UK has got a proud history of welcoming newcomers, people seeking to build their lives here, welcoming refugees fleeing from war and persecution. Our communities are enriched by people, and our economy and our culture is too. But this immigration system, it's broken by the Conservative government. We can't get people to work the system at all. It's a dysfunctional Home Office. We've got no safe routes for people to come here, and that's why we've got so many people coming by dangerous and unsafe routes. The Liberal Democrats, we would scrap the Conservatives' Illegal Migration Act, and we would scrap the Rwanda scheme. We are an internationalist party. We would uphold the Refugee Convention, and we would make sure that there are safe routes for people. My niece was in Taiwan doing teaching time there, and she wanted to marry an American, and it was hugely difficult. It took about a year and a half before she could come back to this country and marry the person she wanted to marry, who was American citizen. Why does it take so long? Why haven't we got a better system? Why are people waiting for decades before they can get their asylum sorted out? Why can't we be a country that works the Home Office better? Why can't we be a proud country that welcomes people fleeing from persecution, but we want safe and legal routes for people to come into our country? Thank you.
Well, yes, I'm proud of being British and of our track record on human rights and taking people fleeing from persecution, whether that be from the Middle East or any other part of the world. I see no reason for that to change. The immigration system is broken and it does need reform from the ground up. We need to process people much faster, continue welcoming them to contribute towards our economy. And last but not least, it will be any human rights that basically exist at the moment will either be incorporated into the new British Bill of Rights and or strengthened to improve our outlook to the rest of the world.
On the issue of refugees specifically, conscious that people have been talking about minimum salary thresholds and waiting a long time to get visa status settled, which are two issues about legal migration, not illegal migration. On the issue of refugees specifically, what we are witnessing is the growth in a vile trade in human life. And like any trade, like any product that is being sold, there is a supply and demand side. And it is our duty to try and prevent these people from having a product to sell people in terms of entry into the United Kingdom, which is dangerous entry and which kills. And so it is right that we act by any means necessary to put a stop to these people trading in human life. Now, that's on the measures that we've taken, measures that have actually reduced illegal entry into the United Kingdom, which is saving lives, making entry, making our migration system safer. On safe routes, we've taken hundreds of thousands of people from Hong Kong and Ukraine, and I'm incredibly proud that we've done that. But this idea that we just say we want a fairer system, and therefore the trade disappears overnight, people stop dying on the channel, is nonsense. We have to address this issue square on, and you'll hear from the Labour Party that they'll smash the gangs, but we won't tell you how. So there isn't a clear answer to this from the opposition. We have a clear plan. It's been voted against repeatedly, and we are the party that are taking the responsible steps to put an end to it.
Thanks. Yes, we should be an international player on the global stage. We do have global responsibilities, and that's why it's right that for those genuinely seeking refuge in our country, we should play our part in line with our proud traditions. The very first thing we need to do, actually, for those already in the system, is to clear the huge backlog of asylum cases that exist, with additional caseworkers, which is what the Labour Party has pledged. And we do need safe and legal routes. Having safe and legal routes and smashing the criminal gangs are not mutually exclusive. Actually, one helps the other. And it should be a moral stain on our country that people who served in Afghanistan alongside our armed forces have been left there to the mercy of the Taliban, and we should do all we can to fix it. And Oliver said we had no plan, so his party hasn't spent millions of pounds on a Rwanda scheme that can't possibly work and took up a huge amount of parliamentary time. Absolutely nothing in return. But of course, the reality is Labour does have a plan. We want to negotiate a real-time intelligence agreement with the EU, as well as end the Rwanda scheme, and properly fund a cross-border security command with anti-terror powers. We have the worst of all worlds currently on immigration, and we need to change that.
Okay, thank you. Question 7, fittingly on politics. There is a lot of apathy towards politics in general. What will you do to engage your constituents in the process of government, local and national? I'll just repeat that. There's a lot of apathy towards politics in general. What will you do to engage your constituents in the process of government, local and national? And can we go to Oliver first?
Well, thank you for the question. I think the most important thing to do is listen. And not a lot of politicians do. I said at the outset that one of my reasons for coming into politics is I don't think we have enough professionals. If I, in my job, didn't listen to my clients, I wouldn't get paid. It's quite that simple. My commitment to you is if I'm elected as your MP, whether you disagree with me or agree with me, and we can have that debate and I welcome it, I will represent your views and be your advocate to the best of my abilities. That's something that we should all say on this panel. That's the grown-up approach to politics. I think, frankly, one of the other faults that we have in our fiscal system is doing things quickly for a cheap laugh or a cheap round of applause. Actually, what we need to do is look at the hard solutions, advocate for them, fight for them, argue if we need to, but state where we agree first and foremost. I think you've seen a bit of that tonight. I hope we can see a bit more of it in the future, and that's my commitment to you. Thank you.
three key areas where I think we need to look at empathy and re-engage people in our democracy. And the first thing we should do is review our democratic systems and processes. We should want everyone to want to vote. We should have polling stations in schools, in hospitals, and really work to open up our democracy and make sure that people are engaged. We've seen some of that, we've obviously in the last few elections with TV debates, but we need to think seriously about how we can engage more people and have a serious conversation about our constitutional settlement under the next government. I think we need to teach about our political system in schools, have a really ingrained citizenship education, and make clear to people that this is your country, this is your democracy, and we all have a stake in it and a part to play. And thirdly, I think there are features of our recent political time that also drive apathy. I think a lack of integrity in our politics drives apathy. I think over-promising and under-delivering drives apathy. And that's why I'm pleased that the Labour Party has set out a fully costed and funded manifesto, that Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves have pledged not to overpromise and underdeliver. And I think actually it's incumbent on all parties and all politicians to think seriously about the promises and the way they engage with the people of our country.
So yes, British politics is broken as well. The two-party system doesn't work. The reason there is so much apathy and voter apathy out there within the general public is because both the Labour Party and the Tory Party have failed, particularly the Tories in the last 14 years. Lots of broken promises. People want a reason to go and vote. If they see politicians going to the people and pledging left, right and centre that they're going to do this, they're going to do that, and then they don't deliver it, it's no surprise that people have lost their confidence in us. So what I would say to you is, in terms of moving forwards, we need wider representation in the House of Commons, and we would favour and push for PR, proportional representation, so that members from the Green Party, the Liberal Democrats, the Conservative Party and Reform can all have a seat and have a say and work together on the problems that we face for the future of Britain.
Geraldine.
Thank you. I knock on doors in this area all year round and talk to people, and the feeling of disillusionment and letdown is palpable. We talk to a lot of people who voted Conservative all their lives. Often their parents voted Conservative all their lives, and they feel that they can't do that again, because to vote for Oliver's Conservative Party again would be an endorsement of what we have seen from Downing Street parties to this week's betting scandals. However, when we talk to people who have green cancers, we find more enthusiasm and energy. And in the Green Party, we have we are the party of the future, and we're seeing a huge surge in membership as people really share their passion and realise that tackling the climate emergency and making our society fairer is actually possible. And we want to see big changes to our democracy. We want to see an elected second chamber instead of the undemocratic House of Lords. We want to see votes for 16 and 17-year-olds, and I'm so happy to see so many young people here tonight. Young people at 16 can get married, they can pay tax, they can join the armed forces. It's outrageous that they can't vote for who will be their MPs. And we want to end the system of voter ID, which the Conservative government has brought in, that is so desperately unfair and going to disenfranchise so many people, especially those from underrepresented groups. And crucially, we want to get rid of the broken first-past-the-post system and introduce a fairer proportional system. We want to give the power back to you to end the system of safe seats, to make every seat fraught so that you will always get a choice in who your MP is. Thank you.
So you won't get proportional representation by voting one of the two large parties, because it's only one of the Liberal Democrats or one of the smaller parties that we have to engage with people. You'll see from my CV, I'm not a particular career politician. but I do think I've got the right skills to be your MP. The Liberal Democrats care about people, and we know that people are disillusioned. I'm a local councillor, have been for 25 years. I knock on a lot of doors, probably more than anybody here has ever done in their lives. And people are disillusioned, but it's only by talking to people and engaging with them that you can find out what people really want. If you want change, if you want political change, the Liberal Democrats are the party. Like Geraldine and the Greens, we do support abolishing voter ID. It doesn't help engage people, it just makes young people who haven't got a passport, who haven't got a driving licence, that it makes barriers for people to vote. So I think it's also looking at what the issues are. The Liberal Democrats are a Remain party, and when we had that referendum vote, it really was a strange sort of vote because it was a major constitutional change. We didn't have the 2/3 majority. There was Project Fear, and I think that whole Brexit vote has damaged our political systems because it turned out that it did damage our economy, it did damage people's welfare. So if you want change, if you want proportional representation, if you want better democracy, then the Liberal Democrats have a policy for that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. I'm conscious of time. We're going to have closing statements at the end. I've got sort of more light-hearted question that I'd like to leave again. But I have received a question from a young person, Arish, who's in year 8, which I would like to get through. Perhaps if we could have this as 1 minute for responses. This is around policing, and Arish's question is, how will you make sure the streets are safer and less dangerous? So how will you make sure the streets are safer and less dangerous? And if we could start with Paul.
The only way to do it is to get more bobbies back on the beat and working in our local communities. Reform UK is committed to recruiting 40,000 new police officers. Obviously, under the previous 2 governments and the coalition, we've seen numbers go up, come down, go up, come down. You have the Tories claiming they're recruiting thousands more new police officers after they've just ditched a load of police officers again. People lose faith in politics because they're not telling us the truth. So yeah, more bobbies back on the beat and more use in terms of tackling knife crime, which is a big issue. Obviously, we know in the inner cities, stop and search.
Thank you, Rash. Thank you so much for your question. I've talked a little bit earlier about some of the changes we want to make about integrating police into the communities they serve. But we want to take a restorative justice approach as well, so that when people are convicted of something, we don't just lock them away and throw away the key and give up hope. We want to work to support people, to integrate them back into society so that they can make a contribution again. And we need to look at issues of discrimination that we've mentioned earlier as well, so that black communities, for example, are particularly disillusioned often with our police force and have had decades of disproportionate policing. Whilst also I think we need to acknowledge that very good work that many of our police do and the excellent work they do put themselves in danger at times. We also want to look at a public health approach to tackling violence, and this is something that's worked in Scotland, where they're putting violence reduction units and help to tackle knife crime and many other issues. So many different things we want to do. Thank you.
That's a great question. I think one of the things about policing is policing needs to be led by communities, and as a local council we do meet regularly with the police, and the police need to be visible working with the communities. So I think this is a particular issue for women and minority groups, but also for all young people. As we've heard, knife crime is a serious problem. We need to have our streets safer. It is connected to the causes. We need to look at those, and we've got to look at people's mental health. We've got to look at prevention services, and we've got to make sure that people feel safe. So there's been various initiatives about having an amnesty on knives. We need to work with the schools to make sure that we can have young people have got the skills, and maybe it's also those children who are excluded as well. There are so many problems with our society, the drug gangs, and I think one of the keys to this is strengthening our communities, working with community groups, with church groups, faith groups, having services for our young people so they can feel safe. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And antisocial behaviour and crime on our streets are having a huge impact on so many people in our society. I hear that all the time from shop workers who experience violence and abuse, and it needs to change. And that's why Labour's community policing guarantee will see 1,000 more neighbourhood police officers, will have more visible town centre patrols and respect orders to ban repeat offenders. We need more visible policing. There are less police on our streets now than there were 14 years ago, and I know how much of an issue it is for people on the doorstep here locally. So a huge amount to do, and of course, alongside that, we must take a well-rounded approach. We must look at the drivers and causes of that. We must invest in drug rehabilitation programs, and I encourage retailers, as part of my job, to invest in those programs. We need to look at other ways and other root causes of antisocial behaviour, but that's Labour's plan to make our streets safer. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm very proud that as a government we put in place police and crime commissions to devolve police decision making to a local level to ensure that communities are involved or should be involved in the way that policing operates in your area. And I'm afraid what we see in Greater Manchester, what we've seen in Greater Manchester over recent years, is a lamentable failure by the Mayor who was responsible for policing in Greater Manchester, with the police being put into special measures under Andy Burnham. Thankfully, now we have a new Chief Constable who's taken sensible, common sense measures to restore trust in the police, ensuring that they use the powers that they have well, and it's our party's policy to make sure that those powers are there for when the police need them. That includes sensible use of stop and search, something that too often has been politicised, but is proven to work, is proven to bring down knife crime. We shouldn't shy away from difficult questions around the abuse of those powers, so I stand fully behind the police and the difficult work that they do in keeping us all safe. And Paul is right to say that we've recruited more police. I'm glad that we've done so, and we stand fully behind them.
Thanks very much. So, final question. Try and keep it a bit lighter, this one. We'll just keep it to 1 minute as well, if that's all right. So, if you were to look back in 5 years' time on your time as an MP, what one thing would you like to have achieved for this constituency? I'll just repeat that. If you were to look back in 5 years' time on your time as an MP, what one thing would you like to have achieved for this constituency? And if we go to Connor.
Yes, thank you very much. One thing I would like to have achieved is to have helped deliver and mould Labour's community policing guarantee, because actually the conversation that sticks out for me most that I've had over the past few weeks was with a woman called Jane. Jane had actually been a non-voter for most of her life. She has 2 kids, one teenage boy who's suffering very severely with asthma, and she was telling me that at the interchange a few weeks ago he was chased by a group of youths and very nearly collapsed before making it to a family member's house. So if I was to look back in 5 years' time, I'd want to go to Jane, talk about how we've got more police officers in the streets of our constituency felt safer, and I'd want her to know that her vote had been for something, her vote for Labour had been for something, that we'd really delivered positive change for her and her family, so that everyone can walk around and feel comfortable on the streets. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's very hard to pin down one thing. There are so many things we'd like to do. We'd like to bring in a rights of nature bill to protect our wild places, and we'd like to fight for peace in the Middle East. We would like to tackle the climate crisis, clean up our dirty air and our dirty water. I think if I had to pick one thing, thing that tackles a lot of the problems that we are facing all in one go is a massive insulation programme to roll out across the country. We need government subsidies to help you all have warmer, cosier homes that are cheaper to heat. It will benefit everyone here. It will benefit and it will give us better health, because we know that living in cold, damp places is part of the problem that we're dealing with in our NHS. It will tackle our climate emissions and it will make all our lives better. And it won't cost you anything, it will save you money, and it will be paid for by a carbon tax, where the dirtiest polluting industries, who at the moment are being supported by the parties that want to continue drilling for oil and gas, will be paying the price for you to have a warmer, cosier home.
Thank you very much. I think it says an awful lot that Connor's one thing he wants to achieve is to shape a policy or a strategy. All for free and no policy, I think, is the net result of that. Look, I can name one thing. It's guaranteeing the status of our unique education system forever. There is a very clear threat on the horizon from the Labour Party against our schools. I will stand against it. I will stand unequivocally in favour of our school system, and I hope that is well understood this evening. Thank you.
So in 5 years' time, when I've been elected as an MP, I'd like to look back and think Altrincham South West has happier, healthier people. This is fundamental, and this encompasses everything. Our mental well-being is everything. So the way we get to that place will be have better support for our early years, support our schools and our education system. We would have fixed our health and social care systems, and we would also have a pleasant environment here. We would have protected our biodiversity, our parks and green spaces would be enhanced, because I think all of these things, tackling climate change, tackling health and social care, tackling biodiversity, tackling climate change, all of these things lead to happier, healthier people. Thank you.
Yes, this is a big one to answer, but I'd like to think that in 5 years' time, if you elected me as your Member of Parliament, that I was part of a government that had an agenda for a low-tax economy that would drive investment back into the UK so we can rebuild the NHS, rebuild our education systems, and get Britain working again.
Great. Thanks, everyone. That's the end of the questions. We'll now have closing statements from each of the candidates. We've got 1.5 minutes for each candidate, and we will start with Connor.
Thank you. Oliver talks about puffery, not policy. I have to say, to people I've spoken to in Tesco and Waitrose here who've had bottles thrown at them, punches thrown at them, and all sorts of other things like that, leading a national campaign on violence and abuse against shop workers, to get to vote for more police on our streets and be a serious safer street program under a Labour government doesn't sound much like puffery to them. And the reality is this, because what I try to do at this evening's hustings is to clearly demonstrate steps that Labour will take on specific issues in government. And we haven't really heard much on specific issues under a future Conservative government from Oliver. No clear national plan to address state school provision, a local campaign on the NHS, but nothing to say about their disastrous record. Just scaremongering about things that Labour won't do, that they want you to believe we will do. That's because the Conservative Party is tired. It's run out of ideas. It's lost its way. And I'm afraid one backbench MP won't change that. I will be an advocate for this constituency in a reforming Labour government if we are to win this election. And I know Oliver and other Conservatives have conceded Keir's supermajority, but be in no doubt, there is still a long way to go. Very few votes have been cast. If you want change, you have to vote for it. So vote Labour on 4th of July. Thank you very much.
you very much, and it's been, I think, an illuminating evening. I'm quite happy to say that I won't insult anyone's intelligence here by saying I don't watch the news or read the newspapers, and we're probably heading for a Labour government. I don't want that, but it is, it seems, an inevitability. And in that context, it falls to me to level with you and to say, do you want someone who will be another backbench MP in a Labour government, washed along with a policy driven by Keir Starmer or his replacement, Angela Rayner? Or do you want someone who will fight your corner, keep what is good in this place, fight for this, our hometown, the very things that I have experienced in my life that have given me so much, our school system, our green spaces in this area, yes, our minor injuries unit, and I'm damn proud of that campaign that I've run. So, yes, I will stand up. Yes, I will stand up. And it's no laughing matter. Yes, I will stand up for this area. Because it isn't a political game to me, it's personal. It's personal for you, and I will be your advocate if you vote for me on the 4th of July. Thank you.
So you do have a genuine choice. You don't have to vote Labour, you don't have to vote Tory. I hope I've been able to give you a flavour of what's in our Liberal Democrat manifesto. Here it is, it's online, do take a look. What I believe in is I'm passionate about our area and I care about the success of people in our area. I'll just say a small thing about the Liberal Democrats, the party I represent. We exist to build a free society where everybody's personal rights and liberties are protected. Everyone should be able to live their lives as who they are, free to pursue their dreams and fulfil their potential, safe in the knowledge that their fundamental rights will be protected. And we believe that the rich diversity we have in this country is one of our greatest strengths. So you might not be aware that the Liberal Democrats can win here. We won in Trafford in 2019. That vote then led on to me becoming your North West MEP, member of the European Parliament. And we remain a party who are wanting to have closer links with the European Union. So my party care about people. And let's make no mistake, it's this Conservative government that have broken our NHS. It's the Conservatives that have wrecked the economy. It's the Conservatives that let sewage be dumped into our waterways. We need things to change in Altrincham West and for the British people. But also, you've heard from Labour. Labour are now just like red Tories. They've walked back on so many things. They've walked back on PR, on many other progressive policies like the Green Deal, employment rights. They aren't talking about nationalising water companies anymore. You won't get change by voting Labour. You won't get to rejoin the single market by voting Labour. So there's one message that is cutting through. This government's got to go. Democracy, everyone deserves a choice. So the Liberal Democrats can win here, and I hope you do consider voting for the Liberal Democrats. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, if you want world-class public services, and if you want a dynamic, low-tax economy that delivers better wages and prosperity for all, if you want a positive future for your children and your grandchildren, and if you are tired of the broken promises, vote for.
Geraldine.
Thank you all for coming tonight and for your questions. I think I've heard questions that raise the tone and the feeling that we get across the country, questions about fear, uncertainty and inequality. And as Greens, we stand against all of that. We want to provide stability, peace, real change and real hope, an actual plan that's fully costed. And the other parties will tell you have to choose between endorsing the record of Oliver's Conservative government and a change. But we know that Connor's Labour Party is not a real change. And apart from anything else, they have not committed to scrapping the two-child benefit cap, an absolutely inhumane and obscene policy, to quote Angela Rayner, the deputy leader of the Labour Party. We know that 250,000 children are being trapped in poverty by this. So, vote Green for serious climate action, for stronger public services, for warmer homes, for stronger and more equal communities, and for a restored natural world. Do you know what? We've already tried. The other parties, the old parties have had their turn, and we can't keep electing the wrong people and expecting them to do the right things. Every Green vote is a vote to put the climate emergency right at the heart of government, and every Green vote will make a difference for years and decades to come in a way that a vote for the old parties just never will. So the time has come, I think, on the 4th of July to vote Green for real hope and real change.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I invite you to give a round of applause to all of our candidates. Genuinely, thank you for your time this evening, for all your consideration of the questions, and for what actually were some really fantastic, well thought through answers. So thank you so much, we really appreciate it. Thank you too for everyone for coming this evening. We appreciate you putting it ahead of football and question time and all other things, so thank you for that. And may you enjoy exercising your democratic right by voting on the 4th of July, a right that, as many of our news headlines shows us, not many people in the world actually have. And along with Altrincham Methodist Church, may I bid you good night. Have a wonderful weekend. The sun is out, ladies and gentlemen, and at the moment it's still staying, so please enjoy it. And continue to ask your questions of all those who seek to represent us. Thanks for coming in.